Hey, what's up, guys? This is Mr. Lohmeyer here, middle school design teacher at Whitby School, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about how I like to draw three-dimensional shapes. And this is going out to all of my friends in the lower school at Whitby. So you can see here, I started out by drawing three basic shapes. We have a square, a circle, and a triangle. Now the idea here is to add some depth. And to help me with that, first I'm going to add a light source that will also be my point of perspective or my vanishing point. So it helps to draw 3D shapes if you know where is your vanishing point, where is everything kind of leading towards. And it helps you to set up the edges for things like a cube, something that will become a sphere, and a pyramid. So now you can see that I'm creating a horizon line. The horizon line will help your drawing to look a little bit more realistic, like the shapes are actually somewhere, not just floating in space. The next thing I like to do is add a bit of shading to the sides of each shape, which now, as they are now three-dimensional, the shapes become forms. So what you can see I did there on the cube is I added hatching on the top and the side, and then I added cross hatching on the back, the furthest point from the light source. So on the sphere, I'm also adding hatching, but I'm going to curve it with the shape of the circle so that it looks more rounded. Over here on the pyramid, I'm going to also follow the edges of the shape, and I'll do the part that's furthest from the light source as cross hatching, while the other side that's a little bit closer to the light will just be hatching. So what is hatching? Hatching are like lines that usually all go in the same direction. The exception would be your circle or your sphere, which is like a ball shape, because you kind of want it to curve with the shape of the ball. Now, when you draw your shape, sometimes it helps to do it with a pencil, because then you can erase and then you can also blend your pencil a little bit easier. But I wanted to do it in pen because the pen is easier to see on a video like this. As I look back at this, I realized, you know what, my ball or my sphere doesn't have as much shading as the other shapes. So I started to add more hatching that curves around the contour of the sphere. Okay, if you really want to add depth to your shapes, it helps to have a shadow. So you see what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the light source and I'm figuring out where would the shadow be cast for these three forms or three-dimensional shapes. Something that's kind of interesting about the ball or sphere shape is that it kind of curves with the shape of the ball. So you don't have a flat bottom to that shadow like you would for the cube or the pyramid. It's kind of a curved, rounded, and very long shadow. So now you can see I've set up my shadows, and the shadows kind of seem to point towards the light source, and this will help your drawing to look a little bit more realistic and three-dimensional. So now I'm going back to darken in a bit of the shadow and especially make the shadow darkest when it's the closest to the shape, because that's where the shadow will be cast with most contrast and make it look the darkest. Okay, so here at this point, I wanted to take a photograph of my three shapes. We're not totally done yet. This is a good starting point to see if you can draw a cube, a sphere, and a pyramid. All right, now next up I wanted to show you guys another shading technique that I like to use called stippling. Stippling is when you add dots to your shapes. Some are very close together, some are a little bit more further apart. The closer together your dots are, the darker your area will look. The further apart, the lighter it will look. So this is especially helpful when you're trying to make a sphere or like a ball shape, because all around the bottom part of the ball and especially the edges, you can have your dots closer together. But then they're further apart once they reach closer to the light source. If you're doing something like a pyramid that's supposed to be potentially built out of bricks, you can try to put your dots evenly distanced from each other. And also it makes kind of a cool noise too. So I encourage you to have a lot of fun when you're doing your stippling with your shapes. Although there are other types of shading other than cross-hatching, hatching, and stippling, you can pretty much do anything that you need with these three types of shading. So as a cartoonist, and I primarily work in black and white with this exact Papermate felt tip pen that you see me using here, I try to stick to these types of shading. What I'm really trying to do is differentiate each side so that each side of each form, or what you would call a shape, looks unique and looks like it's shaded in its own type of light. Add a little bit of stippling to the background. If you want your background to look further away, you're going to put the dots closer together. And if you want the background to look like it's coming towards you, like the bottom of this page here, you can have your dots very, very far away from each other. And that helps to create this illusion of distance and depth. So some finishing touches on my shapes here just kind of go back and hatch even more, so you can barely see any of the paper coming through these felt tip lines here, and it looks very dark, especially the cube. And also see whatever I can do to help the shapes look three-dimensional. And now here's a photograph that I took. Also wanted to show you guys some of my shapes that I have drawn for different projects and just testing things out. When I get new pencils, I like to blur the lines and blend with my fingers and create shapes that look really three-dimensional with shadow and light bouncing off. And here you can see my desk where I created these. It was a really nice snowy day that day, so I also took a picture out the window. Well, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed learning about how to draw three-dimensional shapes, also known as forms, and thanks again. See ya.